Welcome to Mori episode 6. I'm here with Qball and Cyrus. Say hi.
Yo, yo, yo.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey.
Yeah, it works. Okay, Cyrus. I heard like a week ago that you were an animator for a couple of shows like My Hero, Urusei, Boruto. How do you get into that?
So I originally started with like this web show. It's called My Girlfriend is a Robot. I made it on my own. It's like a YouTube channel. It's called My
Mm,
Girlfriend is a Robot.
okay.
I made like I would say 6 episodes independently. And then around that time, I also applied to like an anime studio. So this was
Mm-hmm.
like the only portfolio I had, and they accepted me with that portfolio. And then
Yeah.
I remember my first job was Ruby, the the anime, like the
Ah,
ice.
Ruby. Okay.
Yeah, I
Heard of
was
it.
an animator on that. Uh,
Mm.
I also did like some work on this anime by Mappa called Dance Dance Dancera, but I was not credited.
Then
Uh,
it's yeah for yeah I heard of that yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. But yeah, that's how I started, I guess, my
Mm,
career.
mm, 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 mm. Okay. And how do you ended up at Boruto and Mario Academia Urusei? That's pretty big
Well,
shows.
in the anime industry, it's not like about being big or small. It's just like about who needs like the
A
most amount of
service.
help. Yeah, yeah.
Mm,
Like, because to the audience, right, when we look at a franchise, it's like how big is this franchise versus how big is that franchise. But for anime creators or like production companies, they just see like shows. They don't really know if it's going to be successful or not. To them, like a show is just a
mm.
show,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So like, yeah, just working a lot in the beginning because I tried my best to like give the studio which I worked at my best, and then they started allowing me to work on bigger projects. And yeah, that's how I sort of progressed from those smaller animes and then got a chance to work on some bigger properties, I guess. But it honestly doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of
yeah.
things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you did some random episodes of these shows, basically.
Yeah, usually, like for example, I work at an outsourcing animation studio, so they don't really work on one anime per se. Like they work on, uh, like studios ask them for help, and then they come in, like sort of to save the production. But if you're an
Mm-hmm.
animator, in-house animator, like for example, Mappa or Madhouse, you're gonna be working on like one anime for like 2 years, 3 years. Sorry, not 1 year or 2 years. Usually, that's
Mm.
how long productions are in anime. But yeah, that's how I guess progress.
Okay. And you also have some stuff to show about the anime
Uh,
you work.
sure, I can show you some stuff. Uh, Let me just share my screen. So this is some work I did for Urusei Yatsura. By the way, like all of these folders here, these are all cuts.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so in Japan, you have to do like 5 cuts per day. So basically, like 5 scenes per day to like
Mm-hmm.
make a living. Uh, so let me just go into like one of them. So this is like some animation directing work I did. Uh,
Mm.
Over like this is the original animator's layout, and then I corrected
Mm.
it with my corrections. So this is like
Okay.
animation direction work.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
anime, so in anime, there's in betweeners. Then on top of that, you get promoted to key animators, which is
Mm.
key animation, and then you get promoted to like animation directing, which is what I'm doing here, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are just a lot of cuts here. Uh,
From your latest, so Yatsura.
yes, Urusei Yatsura.
Mm.
Okay, let me just find some others. So the red paper here is like director's notes. So
Okay. What
the
needs to be
yellow paper,
changed, or
yeah, yeah, yeah. So he will write like what needs to be changed, and the yellow paper is like uh, the animation director. Usually in like a healthy production, there's like three or like even one animation director. But in
mm.
like, for example, if an episode is getting rushed, then there's going to be a lot of key, sorry, animation directors because there's just so much bad animation. You have to fix up all of it, and that's going to take
Yeah, 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 yeah.
a lot of time. Yeah.
So like background stuff that doesn't work properly, or mob
So
cycles.
the background stuff is handled by another department.
Mm.
Uh, the animation directors don't have to check that. The directors will do it, and it'll go to like the background department, and they'll
Mm.
handle all that stuff. Let me
Yeah,
just
yeah,
find
yeah.
more. Uh,
Also, just to ask, everything here is done digitally. There's no
yeah. So in anime, right? Uh, the reason why I have these peg holes here on top here, you see these peg holes things here.
Mm.
So I'm doing it digitally, but there's a lot of. Oh, by the way, this is called a timesheet. This is like basically the timeline, but it's a paper version of it. So like every
Mm.
animation software has a timeline. In anime, the timeline is a piece of paper because we're
Yeah.
not using one shared software. It's being done primarily on paper. So this is
Mm.
like basically the virtual timeline of this scene. So you have like all of these keys here, and
Mm.
like these dashes are in betweens, and like yeah, this is the camera notation section. So you notate all the camera movements here.
Mm.
Uh, but back to what I was saying, these peg holes here, they're there because most of the production doesn't happen digitally. Like in-house animators still have to do it on paper, so you need to have
You
these
get
peg
these
holes.
scanned in, sent in to you, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So this was done on paper, for example, uh, and I'm doing it digitally, but I still need to include these peg holes here, so uh,
right
the other,
for
like the director
registration,
can. What was it?
like to register it, to have it line up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, to like be able to actually see where to place it. Because when you print it out, it's gonna be like off by like slightly. You need to like put it all together, like align them properly. So you need to have peg holes here because it is animation. It can't be like slightly offset to the right or to the left. It has to be like precisely in this position. So all of the drawings are, like in this position. So yeah, the peg holes are important, and most of the production does happen on paper still.
How
So
much do you have any idea how much like you are working remotely? Like how much like what percentage of people is working remotely, and how much are working on paper physically
oh,
in Japan?
digitally, and okay, I see what you're asking. So mostly I would say it's done on paper, but like if they have to outsource animation, they will do it mostly digitally nowadays. But in anime history, right, people have always used paper. Like this is not something that's gonna change for a while at least. They've always used paper. They've been using paper for like decades now. Uh,
Mm.
so that's just like it's just part of the culture, I guess, that they're just not going to use. Uh, they're not going to go digital anytime soon because that's just how anime is. It's primarily done on paper. and
Yeah.
all of these like systems they've made in anime, they're all heavily dependent on it being paper based. But in the future, maybe like I don't know, like 30 years, maybe more productions might
Then
start.
more and more is gonna be 3D, like you see
Uh,
now with some shows,
yeah,
like the
in
latest
terms,
Dragon, for instance.
yeah. So for I think Studio Orange did that. In
Yeah.
terms of 3D anime, in my opinion, because I also have a like I'm doing a degree in 3D. So in my opinion, uh, when it comes to like 3D animation, I think that they will probably incorporate it more with the backgrounds because
Yeah.
uh, from what I can see, like for example, if you look at modern anime like Nagatoro, you'll notice
Mm-hmm.
like the backgrounds are not that great. They're kind of like digitally done. They're
Mediocre.
just yeah, they're doing like Photoshop brushes and stuff. Like it just doesn't look that good. So I
Mm-hmm.
think with like using 3D, they can definitely trace over it and start painting and have a bit more. They already use 3D in anime, by the way. They use it just for reference. They don't really use it that much, but I think slowly they will start incorporating it more and more into the
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
background.
yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah, they already do use 3D. I've got 3D layouts from Mappa. They just sent like these mannequins, and I'm supposed to like draw according to the position of the mannequin. So they know how
Mm-hmm.
to do 3D, but they're not heavily relying on it at the moment.
Yeah,
Right. So
yeah,
they're,
yeah.
they're using they're using the tree. So that what you mentioned, they're getting the scene with the 3D mannequins and stuff. They're using that to plan it out, and you kind of filling it in with hand drawn
Sorry,
animation
you
over.
cut out there for a second. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm just saying like they kind of using the 3D as like a pre-visualization, and
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah, yeah. They
okay.
use like 3D for pre-visualization of a scene. They have like classrooms. Like I've noticed a lot of productions, when they send us, I guess 3D layouts, they have like classrooms. They really like to model classrooms because like drawing every single table there is gonna like be a nightmare. So they have modeled
Yeah,
chairs and tables, and they send those over, and they send those over as reference for the artist. But
um,
uh 3D can obviously be used a lot. Like it can be used in many more ways than just a layout. It can be used for example, if you remember like the Puss in Boots movie, right? It has like beautiful cell like painted kind of effects on
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
the
mix
tables
it
and
together.
chairs and the backgrounds. Yeah, so those are done using shaders, like custom shader development and
Mm.
uh, sort of pre coded visual development artists. And if anime studios can get their hands on those kinds of people, I mean, they don't even need to do painted backgrounds anymore. They can just do that. So
Mm.
uh, I do think that, and plus they've already started doing it with Studio. If you remember, they tried experimenting with like AI and the background. I don't know if you saw this one film, but they made like a test film with like a dog, and it was like the backgrounds were made using like assistant AI technology, and they sort of painted
Mm.
over it like a matte painting kind
I
of style.
mean, I've seen it with some games, and I know a manga that's fully made by AI. I know that's
Mhm.
done, but anime not really. No.
Yeah. So that film, which Netflix recently released, was made by like Wit Studio. I forgot its name, but they were basically like experimenting with AI, and it's fairly new. But I do think like in the future, backgrounds are definitely going to be replaced more with technological sort of.
Yeah, yeah, with CGI, AI, some,
Yeah,
and so
exactly,
on.
exactly.
I mean, Studio 4C did in the early 2000s already did that with uh,
Yeah,
a lot of their shorts, like 2D and 3D, and then putting the 2D
right,
over the
right.
3D to make that whole world basically. Like
Yeah, yeah.
in. Tekken Concrete.
Hmm.
Yeah, that kind of shows basically. Or a Genius Party. Yeah, they also made Genius Party. They did two
Right,
there.
right. Studio Ghibli has also used 3D in like some of their adverts, but I think the main reason they're not too heavily reliant on 3D is because they themselves like the culture of anime, the culture of using
Yeah. They're famous for
painted
that.
backgrounds, right? It takes more effort, but it is worth it. It looks good.
Mm,
But like I don't know, like with the way the future is seeming right now with anime and stuff, it definitely feels like they want to start using the technology that's available to them to make and punch out anime much faster than what they currently do, I guess. But
yeah.
Uh,
yeah,
And projects like
Is
Berserk 2016-17 were like below the standard basically. It was all done last minute, a whole departments that didn't work with each other, a director that didn't know anything, and it just became a disaster.
mm-hmm, yeah, uh,
Really?
I think well I just wanted to say I think that one thing that that 3D is good at is like kind of building up a lot of density. Like like sometimes I do stuff where like I have like one hand drawn element and like I just using basic copying and flipping and all these kind of tricks and scaling and stuff. You're able to build up like let's say I did one building, you're able to kind of build up like an entire city.
yeah, yeah,
So like
yeah,
that is some I suppose it could take away a lot of the drudgery then. You know.
right, yeah, yeah,
One thing I wanted to ask too was you mentioned um, that there's no one program that people use. So I use like a lot of stuff. I use Toon Boom, Open Tunes,
uh,
Tahoma. So
to be
so
honest,
all
to
the
like when it comes to like software, when like I'm sure you've heard of this many times, and I'm not the first one to say this, but like when you do 2D animation, it doesn't matter what software you use, it's just about the person doing it. So when it comes to like anime, you can use like literally any software as long as you can flip back and forth between frames and you have those peg holes like that I've just mentioned, and that's all you need. And good drawing skills, of course, and animation skills. But uh, yeah, as long as you have those things, you can print them out, and the person who gets your drawings will be able to translate them into their pipeline and be like, okay, well, I have these frames here. I can now take them to the line art process or the coloring process, and like, I can do a lot with it with just like these pegos here and this format which I'm following. It's not just anime that does this. It's also like, for example, have you ever seen like Cartoon Network shows like Adventure Time, Steven Universe, regular
Yeah.
show? So
right.
those cartoons are also outsourced to Korean studios, which also have like they also use paper, and they also use this peg hole thing. So it honestly doesn't matter what software you use. Professional animators just focus on like the animation and the drawing. Like that's the biggest thing that matters. And when you animate on paper, like that's all you're focusing on. You don't have the tools to help you out. You don't have the like all those like helpful things like that could help you. You just focus on the last frame and the frame next, and that's basically how you do animation. I like that's the most basic way to do it.
Mm.
Right. That's like a good way to look at it. Like I work with some on some things that like they were only in Toon Boom. You had to start it and finish it in Toon Boom. Like and they wanted the
Right,
actual file too. So like
right, right.
I think like that is not comfortable for a lot of people. Like
Hmm.
I mean I don't know if you ever used that, but the drawing doesn't feel quite right sometimes because it's a vector program.
Yeah, yeah.
It,
Vector
it, it,
programs. Right. So if you're gonna work in, for example, if you're working in like a South Korean studio, you obviously want to avoid using vector program. But there are some studios that do use vector programs, like Science Saru. They're working on a Scott Pilgrim anime at the moment. So
Ah,
Science Saru uses vector-based software like Flash, maybe Toon Boom, but they use the pen tool, I think, so you don't get like those ugly lines. Uh, but anyways, yeah, there are like a few studios, but for the most part, everybody animates on paper because like that's how you get like the most control over your lines and your drawings.
In a way, I kind of like that, because it's like a great
Yeah,
equalizer. People sometimes people like lean a lot on these programs, and like one of the things that I think people use the vector for is because they're going to be doing cutout, and they really want that clean. Like
right.
you said, they're using the pen tool. They're not even
Yeah,
really
yeah,
quote unquote
right.
trying.
Yeah, like to get like
'Cause,
smooth lines, you need to practice, and it's all about your own skill. You can't use like any sort of tools to help you there, and it takes a lot of practice to like get those clean, crisp lines.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And which of these shows you worked on are your favorites, or do you have any favorites?
I think design wise, I definitely like maybe Ruby. I really like the
Mm,
designs of Ruby. Uh,
mm. And that was
yeah,
all 3D basically.
yeah, there
Ruby.
was a lot of 3D in Ruby, and I did hear like it was not the greatest show ever, but I did like the designs when I was like animating.
Okay, 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 okay. And after these animes, what do you think you're gonna work on next?
Uh, well, there's a lot of animes that are currently lined up. It honestly depends on what my company decides to take next, and then they'll tell me, you got to work on this, and I'll be like, cool, I'll work on that, and yeah, then I guess I'll work on that then, whatever comes
Mm.
next.
Do you have also material from the other shows you worked on?
Yeah, but like I didn't sign in an NDA for Urusei Yatsura, so that's why I'm showing you most of that.
Ah, okay, okay.
is there any? What would you say is the most challenging shot that you did, if you can,
Most
if you can share that? Yeah.
The most challenging shot I did. Uh, Let me try and find that. Uh, so this is like, wait, no, this is something else. So these are just like a bunch of action sequences, but they're not really that complicated. Uh,
Hmm. And this is from Ruby or some other show?
this is like from an upcoming anime. I think
Mm.
I don't really know its name, but like this is the studio behind it. I don't really know what it's called.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Geek Toys.
If you
No,
can
never
read
heard of it.
Japanese here, that's the name.
Okay, okay, okay. Interesting though.
Uh, yeah, so that's like one of the more action sequences I did uh, in terms of animation. But
Mm.
uh, so yeah, that's all of this stuff I think I can show you for
Yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah. I mean, back in the day, it was really expensive to get any 3D done. Like in the 80s and 90s, majority was just all 3D, and everything you want to do on 3D was really expensive, and all the budget
Right.
was mostly blue on that. So, and now it's like, oh yeah, it's the cheapest method you can think
Yeah,
of
I
to
mean,
mirror
yeah,
things, right?
studios like can literally just download Blender and just make 3D layouts easily.
Mm.
It's not really any like expensive at all.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
with anime, hmm?
no, I just saying, but I still glad so much is being done. by hand in like the mid 2000s, or even maybe a little later than that. I was kind of worried, I thought that, like, oh well, this is like this new thing that's gonna is gonna make everything hand drawn obsolete, But
Right.
then you look at uh, a lot of the hand drawn stuff doesn't age in the way that 3D does. I mean, a
Yeah.
lot of those early. Well,
3D
I just want to say that.
definitely is
Sorry, go ahead.
used a lot, like cars and helicopters, any sort of, I guess, vehicles, tanks. They've stopped drawing them. They just use 3D.
Hmm.
Yeah, but the few times that I think that they do use them, those are the ones that look better. Like they'll use them for like I said, to build up density, to fill up the background. Even
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
sometimes I notice people in crowds. They have people in crowds, and
Yeah,
the crowds were CG. But
yeah,
not really.
people, crowds, like they definitely use 3D a lot for crowds because like drawing all of those people in the background is hard. I mean, I've done crowd shots, hand animated crowd shots. It's not really like it really depends on whether the studio is willing to compromise that quality if they have time. If they don't have time, they're just going to use CGI, but if they really want to do it, they can do it. It's possible to do it. In the past they were like they just couldn't do it. Like CGI was not that good. It didn't look good, but now it like anime studios are starting to get a hang of it, the hang of it. So now they're starting to do it more often. But like, yeah, it honestly depends on whether or not, because like not all cuts are the same. Some cuts will be more expensive than others, but it really depends on if they want to blow their, like make this cut super expensive, which has like a crowd shot, but it's not really that important to the scene. So they'll be like, okay, let's use CGI for this, you know?
Um, well, a lot of times, that kind of stuff I do it like I build up the density in the compositing stage where I just copy, the few people that I have drawn, and
Yeah,
flip them and palette swap them, and
yeah, yeah,
just anything to trick
yeah.
people into,
There's
So
there's a lot of
mhm.
different techniques in anime to like save money or like do cheap tricks to like save the budget. There's so many I can't possibly like say all of them, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of things like that in anime they do to like speed up the cut progress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Well,
mean,
I kind of work independently for a lot of stuff, so I sure I use all of them. Just to try to make it look like
Hmm.
if it's not just one guy in a basement somewhere making this.
Right. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
that is almost like that takes almost as much effort as actually doing it. How do I make this look like is bigger than it really is? If that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
and
Yeah,
how much? Yeah. By the way,
uh,
how much do you get per thing that you make? Like, I know, like in general, animators don't get a lot, like even
Uh.
below somebody in the
So
supermarket.
honestly, like I'm gonna be real with you when it comes to like getting paid. Uh. So I don't speak Japanese. My
Mm-hmm.
studio has like translators for me, so they
Mm-hmm.
like translate the director's notes, and then I do it. Some
Mm-hmm.
people, a lot of people in the anime industry do speak Japanese, and the reason I mention this is because in a sea country like Japan, if you work there, and you find like things are cheaper compared to like going to a place like America where the economy is different. You
Yeah,
work a
yeah.
minimum wage job there, you're not going to be able to live like properly, right? But
Mm-hmm.
if you go to another country with those minimum wages, you can live like you can live quite comfortably depending on the country you're going to, depending on the country's economy. So like the basics. If you live in a city, it's going to be more expensive than living outside of the city.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
So yeah, living in Tokyo is more expensive, but generally speaking, the wages that if you're a good animator, if you're doing like 5 cuts per day, you can live a normal life. Now the issue is if you're not a good animator, if you can't do 5 cuts per day, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna really struggle. You can't survive off those wages. You
Yeah.
need to be able to do at least 5 cuts per day. And that's where the
Mm-hmm.
issue lies, is that there's a lot of for example, the in-betweeners. They're new artists, they can't do 5 cuts per day, they're gonna get paid lower, they can't make as much money, so that's where you have these issues. Like they can't live off of these wages, but somebody needs to do in betweening, right? That's who's gonna do in betweening. The anime needs to get made.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are people who get paid badly, but if you're skilled enough, if you have enough experience, if you are a good animator, you will get paid properly and you will be able to live at least comfortably in lower, less expensive country in Asia compared to like a Western country or European country.
Mm. Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. I mean, I saw some animators on YouTube that they just do it out of passion and nothing else because they even
Yeah,
work at a supermarket. They can even make more than you, and they have to work,
right. Yeah, honestly,
live
yeah, if you work
apartment and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
right. Yeah, if you work like minimum wage in like a better country with a better economy, you're gonna earn more money, of
Mm.
course. But see, here's the issue, right? So there are animation studios in like the West, but their rates are so ridiculous that most publishers and stuff like networks don't hire them. They don't hire them for long-term animation because it's like so expensive. They can blow like millions of dollars on just a cartoon show. It's impossible. And
Mm.
the animators need to get paid, right? They need to get live comfortably in this rich country, so
Yeah.
it's a dilemma. So how do they, like, they can't hire them, so what do? They come to like cheaper countries like Japan,
Yeah.
South
Yeah.
Korea, and they're like, okay, well, these guys are cheaper, we're gonna go for them here. And Western animation studios, they do get work, but it is usually like for advertisements or like
Yeah.
movies,
Yeah. Yeah.
some
Joined
of,
up work, like multiple
yeah,
studios work on one project. Yeah.
right, yeah. And also another thing I've noticed about Western studios, and this is not a diss or anything, but I've noticed that there's like a lot of animators, like needlessly too many animators for some projects, whereas in the anime industry, like one key animator can, so like if he's the best in the West, he can handle like one entire episode on his own.
Mm.
So
Mm. Mm.
yeah, there's like the skill ceiling for the anime industry is definitely very high, and if you want to be able to live off of these wages, you definitely need to be very good at what you do.
Yeah. 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 And
w-
do you ever work with the manga that these series are based on, or just you get a a task and you have to finish it basically?
Yeah, I basically get a task now to finish because the studio I work at is an outsourcing studio. They don't really
Mm.
make anime. And by the way, there's a lot of outsourcing studios that you probably never heard of. There's one I used to work at as a freelancer called RA Craft. If you look at them on my
Mm.
anime list, they've done a lot of in betweening, cleanup.
Mm.
There's a lot of
Mm.
like outsourcing studios, and even Mappa, like studios as big as Mappa and Madhouse
They
and
even
Bones and
outsource
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they outsource to like these studios. So it's just like a constant cycle of outsourcing to outsourcing to outsourcing. And I guess that's the state of the anime industry today.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and like sometimes even those even the place Trinidad was trying to have like to become an animation outsourcing hub, but by the time it would reach here, it's already been outsourced 50 times, and
Exactly. Yeah.
everybody's taking their, so it's like, why even, or it's almost like why even bother at that point? It's almost
Exactly.
not worth it. Is
Yeah, yeah. See, if anybody wants to become an animator, I would definitely tell them to keep it as a hobby because it's just not worth it. Like you work so hard to like I've
for so little.
gotten a degree. It's not like you could spend all that time getting an actually like degree that's actually worth it and earn properly. Like I've come to a point in my life where like I've become sort of numb to just like animation and like this all of this I guess glamour of art and animation is just sort of work to me now, and I've
Yeah, yeah,
realized that it's more important to take care of your health outside of your work because you
yeah,
start
yeah. When you,
valuing things.
yeah, yeah. When you make your hobby your work, you don't like your own hobby anymore. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because I was just like all of those other people who were like, "Oh wow, I want to be an animator. I'm so excited. I need to do this. It's my career. I needed. I This is for me." And then after
Mm,
like so much time has passed, I've realized that wait, I actually care about other things. I care about like friends and family and all these other things. And
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah. It
feels
takes a huge toll on you. Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely is like a huge mantle to take up. So people who want to become animators, they should definitely consider just keeping it as a hobby. You don't have to make everything a career just to be satisfied. Like I said, I made
No,
a web
no,
show
no.
before I became an animator. I didn't work professionally. I made a web show on my own. So
Mm.
you don't have to like be a professional and work for big studios. You can just be happy doing your own stuff.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Just like a podcast, for instance. I mean, anybody can make anything nowadays, so you don't
Yeah,
really need
thanks to
to have the
YouTube.
best stuff to do anything, really.
Yeah, like not everything has to be part of like this big project that is like loved by everybody. And like if you're doing it for being part of a big project, you're just doing it for like the clout. You just want to get attention, basically. So that's what you actually want. Well, if you actually want
Yeah,
to do that, you shouldn't even be an animator. You should be like a celebrity or something.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, like what is it that you really want? Let's be real here. Is what I'll say.
Mm, yeah, yeah, yeah. And as for anime, I guess you watched a lot of anime back in your day. What's your favorite or like the best you have seen? For
Uh,
what?
I probably have really weird taste in anime. I used to
Oh, so
watch a
do
lot
I.
of anime. So probably my top three anime is Kino's Journey, uh,
Ah, I guess I
Natsume's
also seen that.
yeah, Natsume's Book of Friends.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever seen Mushishi? Mushishi?
Mushishi? Yeah, of course, of course. I've seen everything of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's really great.
yeah. Those are like my top three, I would say.
Hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I
It,
think.
it, it,
I mean,
uh,
I think
I was just saying
Mushishi.
that
Hmm.
I'm just saying, I think it's interesting that I like these kind of and like it's a genre animation or anime in general that I've only kind of now come across this relaxing anime.
Yeah,
Not
Yeah, you like YKK, for
uh,
instance.
right. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, you know, I think
Like there's a
YKK
lot of
is the
like subgenres of things. I think you can easily find the kind of show or manga that you like specifically for you.
yeah,
Hmm.
and it's interesting. You would think that Japan initially like anime I imagine was made specifically for Japan and manga. I mean now
Yeah,
is
yeah.
worldwide is popular worldwide, but uh,
See,
it's interesting that there are so many tiny niches
yeah, yeah.
in
See,
that in
okay. See, the thing with that is that I think not that Japan has so many genres. I think it's that the West is like so focused on money and what's popular. Is that Japan doesn't care about those things. They just make art for the sake of making art. They don't care about the money or how profitable this thing is gonna be. Be like,
Yeah, yeah,
is a
yeah.
romance about this kid and this girl gonna be the next hit film? No, let's make it anyway. So they make it anyway,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But in
They don't
Hollywood,
even know they make a
yeah,
subgenre or something.
right,
They just think they
exactly.
like it, so they're gonna adapt it.
Yeah, and if you look at Hollywood movies, like you have a pretty good idea of what a Hollywood movie is supposed to be like. You have like this image of what a Marvel movie is supposed to be like. You have like you
Yeah,
have this image of what a comic book is supposed to be like. You have like these specific, I guess, check boxes of criteria, if you want to put it that way, for like all these different media. But like in Japan, like they just make things without really caring about how successful it's gonna be. Just like making
yeah,
things for the sake of making things.
yeah.
But
And maybe
I'll get
Qball, can you maybe turn off your background noise? If that's
Oh,
possible.
sure. Can you hear my fan? Is that?
No, no, no. I was talking to Qball or cars and whatnot. I don't know if it's
Oh, I see. Hold on.
irritable for us.
let me see if I could. Is it any different now?
I hear less, so I guess that worked. So
Okay.
good, good,
Well,
good, good.
the biggest contractor in Trinidad. So that
Mm.
that's kind
I
of,
see.
yeah. That's why I like to work in the night, because like you have trucks and all this sort of thing up and down the road like at all
Mm,
times. That's right.
Yeah,
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 I would.
yeah.
Um,
I would not live like
but
right next to a highway.
yeah, yeah. So I think you have an idea how it is. What
Yeah,
Hmm.
but with respect to what we was talking about, how they do things that are more experimental.
Yeah.
I also think that they are okay. Like certain things like manga, like there's like a lot of manga that's never made into anime, but it's so
Hmm.
super niche. But
yeah,
Exactly.
because it's relatively cheap to produce, um, and they they're able to make it, and for it
Right.
to be at least sustainable, because it's you don't actually need a
Yeah.
huge amount of people buying it, as long as there's like
Right.
a core fan base. And
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
I think that's, yeah. Well, I mean, I just saying, like, I think that is why, like, you're seeing like a lot of independent people coming up making all kinds of things, because they're not really interested in
Yeah.
making a huge amount of money, but just as long as they're
Exactly.
able to kind of remain independent.
Exactly.
Uh,
If you want more sub like niche genres, you should definitely not look at like big publishers and go like on webtoons or stuff like that to find things that are niche like manga, for example, but for the Western audience.
and
mm.
one thing I find funny is that once in a while, one of these things it takes off, and then everybody is obsessed with it. Like
Yeah.
I think One Punch Man was kind of like that, right? There was like this very crude manga, and now it's the
Hmm.
hugest thing in the world. Everybody like uh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
and
Like Mob
the original
Psycho
creator
100.
isn't like that.
Right. Right.
That's really
Like
Mob
crudely
Psycho.
drawn, but an animation studio could just get a spin on it and make it a really popular show that's been
Yeah.
now going on for a few years at this point.
Exactly. So like I've been
So I
talking
think,
about how great anime is, but there are definitely downsides to everything.
Mm.
So I'm not gonna say like anime sucks because of the money. I have like different reasons why I think like there's some bad things about the anime industry.
Yeah,
Uh, so the first thing I would want to say is that the directors, I think people idolize them a bit too much because sometimes
yeah.
directors
They
are like,
think they do everything else, and nobody
uh,
else is working on it.
yeah. So the
Kind
directors like they're not all they're not all the best because sometimes you get like a director, and this happened with me. Said they'll uselessly correct your cut and keep adding stuff even though the deadline of the entire production is so close, and
Mm.
then like the animators will follow that, and then they ruin the cut, and then the director is like, well, I want to retake of this. Okay, but like you ruined the cut. So like yeah, there like there's a lot of directors that are sort of vain or egotistical, in my opinion. I'm not
Yeah,
saying this
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
everybody, but I think they're given a bit too much respect, essentially when they all they do is just storyboard and add corrections to animators' cuts and
Yeah.
manage animators. Of course, management is a big part of. your job as well.
Yeah, I mean, I heard with Satoshi Kon, I've seen his documentary on the cinema, and he said about him that he was really, really, really hard towards his other employees and how something
Yeah,
should be made or how uh,
yeah,
the work environment should be or how it should be all about what he
yeah,
thinks.
yeah.
And you have to precisely work on how to work. So any director can have some different traits or
Right.
just some really harsh personality that you just
Yeah,
have
it
to work
is.
with. Or
It is. Yeah, if you get like a director which is extremely hard to work with, I think, well, good luck, because it's so, like, I've heard of stories where people, like, the director will just be like, we can't keep you on the production anymore because you got this one thing wrong, and it's just like, wow, that's such an exaggeration. Uh, yeah,
yeah,
it's like
I mean,
like
like,
people. Yeah,
well, I just want to say, yeah, I think that is something like we deal with all over, like, and a lot of times I think it's people just like to kind of flex the power that they have or that they think they have,
exactly. Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
like,
Just sort
like
of being like,
sometimes,
hey, I'm gonna add this in because I'm the director and you have to listen to me. So I know what I'm doing, basically. But like, the director's not always right. He's also human, and he can, make mistakes, and yeah, he can mess up the production if he's not careful enough.
yeah, or just
yeah,
get or needs to change his style because he needs to be more mainstream to get more viewers in, to get more money in, to get on a higher place on the food scale, basically. Like with
Hmm.
USA, for instance, USA in his beginning career was everything experimental. Mind Game was really experimental. Kaiba was really
Hmm.
experimental. It's its own style, its own personality, and later
Hmm.
on the line, then it became more normal, more like the usual drama shows, or the usual kids shows, or the
Hmm.
usual stuff. And now he's gone. And like the last thing he did was Inuo, and it was just like his last big experimental thing that he did, like the last big, really to heart animation. I would say that was his
Hmm.
last good stuff, and the rest was just all or rushed or for kids or it's just a drama that nobody cared about, or it's just like it was just like it was made, but it was not really
Hmm.
out there. It was not, he was not really into it. Like with Mind Game, it was like he just got all these artists in and just on a shoestring budget just tried to make it. Just one artist in, out, in, out, in, out, and you get this whole mess of a movie. There's all kinds of
Right.
styles and whatnot, and you try to make a coherent story out of it, which, yeah, you try to get any sense out of that, but yeah, and obviously it depends on who you work with, like
Hmm.
with ping pong or yeah, on with Matsumoto, for instance, and then you get and something with a really experimental with some Western styles or some Belloccio, Franco styles. You get into an anime, and then you get this really weird show or just a really interesting show that kind of looks ugly but still really works, like with Tekken King Creed and other shows that he made or other manga that he made. Or like with the guy who made Ghost in the Shell, for instance, he also made shows like Angel's Egg, which is also this really experimental, dream-like story that was also with religion in it and dreams that he had and
Hmm.
Matsumoto of what's his name again. And you get these always weird styles, and later on he gets way more mainstream and way more normal, and then stuff gets less interesting the more he goes on. And obviously, the older generation doesn't get at the top anymore, so they just make some mediocre shows that nobody cares about with some bad CGI in the background, and yeah, they just fall off after a while.
Right. Right.
well,
Yeah.
it
If
might
if
be
like
people kind of, yeah, sorry, go
if
ahead.
like if like things go right in a production, everyone's gonna praise the director, even though the reason why things are going well might not even be the director's fault. It could be thanks to somebody else in the production. And if things go wrong, well, you don't know who to blame. It you can't
Mm.
just blame the director, but like, well, they have time constraints. So yeah, it's honestly like people. There's a lot of idol culture in the anime industry,
Mm.
which I think is unhealthy for any individual.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Too much in the public eye, like you said. That's why he probably left. Too much stress is on his own work. Too much stress in the media world, etc., etc., etc. And you get that kind of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, hmm.
One
What were
thing
you
I wanted to
saying?
ask, uh, yeah, I wanted to ask, you mentioned doing 5 cuts a day. Like what is considered as a cut? Like you get like yeah, well go ahead, yeah.
Cut is basically just like a scene, sort of like in film when you have a camera and then you move it around, and then as long as that camera is like stationed there and it doesn't change, like that's one cut. And as soon as it goes to another one, it's another cut, basically.
Right, but I wanted to know what was your like would you take that from the few keyframes to total completion and clean up and everything, or like what would you receive and what would you give them back for a
Well,
cut? And also
I would basically like if I'm doing animation direction work, I would receive the key animator's work, and then I'd have to clean it up and then send my director's corrections. Wow, that's a mouthful, and then send that over to the production. If I'm doing key animation, I get storyboards, and then I will have to animate those storyboards and then send it over to the production.
that would be key animation or just the full
Yeah, it would just be
animation.
just key animation, and then that'll go to like the director, and then the director will send that over to the animation director, and that'll go to the in betweening. No, yeah, in betweening department, and then they'll wait, sorry, no, it'll go back to the key animator to clean up his mistakes, and then it'll go to the in-betweening department, and then they'll also color it in. I think if they're the same person, or they'll send it over to somebody else to color it in, and then they'll send it over to compositing, and then they'll composite it and mix everything together. And yeah, that's how you make anime, I guess.
Hmm.
Um, have you ever done in between yourself?
Have I ever what?
In between, like
In
received
betweening?
cuts
No.
to in between.
No, I've never done in betweening per se, but in key animation, it's not a hard and fast rule that you have to do key animation. Sometimes, for example, if you look at Sakuga cuts, they have all the animation in the key animation. It's like they've already in between everything. So it honestly depends on the cut. If it's like a high budget cut, the key animator will take care of most of the keyframes and then just leave like tiny parts where the in betweener can come in and save the day. But if it's like a simple cut, then most of the in betweens will be done by the in betweener, and they'll, like for example, a head turn or character moving slightly or looking down or like picking something up, it'll be done by the in betweener. But if it's like a crazy action cut, then a lot of the key poses will be done by the key animator. And no, I've not done in betweening because that's usually done by in-house animators, because of cleanup and coloring. I do believe like they're connected in some way, so they handle that in-house in their own studio.
Right. So
Hmm.
the like sometimes on the drawings I see like lines in different colors indicating like highlights and shadows and this sort of stuff.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, is that done by that actually is done by you, the
Yeah,
creating key animation?
key animators and animation directors are both required to do like shadows and lighting. That's important for them to do.
Okay. Because I mean I used to look at that and say I can't believe this is well, like I know it's done in passes, but when you're looking at it, you can see it's like this is like thousands
Uh,
of miles of lines here, kind
Yeah, yeah,
of.
exactly. So honestly, like there are animators who like just do everything in just one pass, and I don't like do passes either. In the anime industry, as you know, like you have to do like 5 cuts per day, so you don't have time to do
Mm-hmm.
passes. That's why I said the skill ceiling is really high in the anime industry. So you don't have any time to sketch your drawings out. You have to just go, just draw it, and then be done with it. There's no, like, you have to be a professional artist as well. You can't like do fundamental, like build it up with the drawing like blocks. It has to be, you put your pen down and the character is there, you know so it is a very high skill job. Not everybody could do it, and not everyone can do it fast as well. So it's just like, yeah, it takes a lot of skill to be able to, and animation director is not even like an easy position to get. If it's in-house, you from what I heard, you need to be very experienced at your job to be able to get like this position. I'm not doing it in house at any studio because at outsourcing studio. But if you're working at like Bones or something and you're an in-house animator, it's gonna take like a long time before you can become an animation director because it's just such a high skill job.
Mm.
And I imagine if it's actually like an in-house person that is even more rigorous. Like they some things they like the things that they outsource are those things that are like, how to say, um we don't require as much fine control over this shot,
Yeah,
as opposed to, is not to undermine, what the outsourced people are doing, what you guys are
right,
doing,
right.
but I imagine that
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
some
yeah.
things that they want, you know this is
Yeah,
the
yeah,
money
yeah.
shot. Then, we want to do this,
Yeah, yeah. So when it
uh
comes to like you've seen like all these Sakuga shots, right? In like Mob Psycho, you see those Sakuga shots. Uh in One Punch Man, you see a lot of Sakuga shots. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of them are not done in house. They outsource them also to freelancers online who are good at like action animations. For example, if you remember in My Hero Academia, that one scene where Deku is like sort of running into the fire, uh, that was done by a web animator. And like for example, in One Punch Man, when that sea monster king like smashes Saitama and his head like wobbles, that was also like done by a very action driven web freelance animator. The thing is, right, they do have animators in house who are very skilled at doing action sequences. For example, Yutaka Nakamura, but for like most of an anime, you don't have action sequences. You have like these mundane shots. You have like close-ups. You have walking, running, those kinds of stuff, right? And the action animators, they're reserved for like their pieces of like their kind of cuts. So those freelancers only take those kinds of jobs. Like they don't do these normal kind of cuts usually, right? They can't do like 5 cuts per day, just like that. So yeah, it's definitely a different kind of animator when it comes to doing like very action heavy shots. They do it both in-house and outsource it. It's not different in my opinion, but I do think that they definitely outsource more action than they outsource. I guess most of their anime is outsourced to like companies, actual outsourcing companies, and then the action shots are outsourced to like highly skilled, famous freelance animators.
like, well, one thing I'm actually kind of glad for it is that, like, sometimes those action shots, they look a little different than the rest of the show. It might be almost like, it's not like, it doesn't really have continuity with the character that you saw just before. So like you kind of get a little more of the individual in those shots, if that
Yeah,
makes
yeah,
sense.
exactly, right. Because these shots are outsourced to freelancers, and freelancers, they have obviously their own style, their own like
But
sort of voice, you know.
yeah, I
So
actually kind of like that, and I think that is one of the reasons why, some of the Western productions are so over budgeted and so, have so many people working on them because they're obsessed with having everything kind of be on model. And I don't, I,
Uh,
I,
well, Well, when it comes to like anime, I would say they're more obsessed with keeping everything on model than Western productions. But in terms of a lot of people working on one project, I don't want to be like undermining them, but the amount of skill that's required in the anime industry is definitely, I would say, like the budget and like the time is definitely a lot higher than uh, getting a job in the Western animation world because like I said, I went to college for a degree in 3D animation. I've seen Western 2D Western animators, and that kind of speed is just it's not acceptable in the anime industry. You can't actually make a show with those speeds. I mean, these shows are made like the entire production, the animation side of things has to be done like one episode in 2 to 3 months. Like that's insane for just like a few eight key animators and one animation director per episode. So yeah, you definitely need to be very fast, and that's why I think a lot of Western productions have animators, a lot of animators, so they can try and sort of fill in that gap and make their production meet other productions' schedules and
Mm.
their own schedules, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. By the way, another question. Movie directors. Are there any favorites in there? Or which movie director would you pick for an anime? Or you think would be interesting if they did an anime?
Um, I don't actually know that much about movie directors.
Mm.
Most of my knowledge is just in shows and just doing a lot of
Yeah,
anime.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
do
Okay.
know that with movies, generally speaking, there is a bit more freedom in time. I think maybe because like shows, you have like 12 episodes.
Mm.
It's a longer runtime than a movie in total. Uh, Shots need to be done ASAP. So yeah, in my opinion, I would say movies might have a bit more freedom with the director, messing around and experimenting with shots,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
animations.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
And yeah, and with game companies taking anime, I mean, from Appleseed, there was like a movie from Appleseed from like 2015 that a game company made it anime, like all cutscene wise, and how
Hmm.
everything was set up. It looked like a game. What do you think about that? Would that be anything that people should use into in the future, or just
Which game is like? Are you mentioning like?
Appleseed? Like in 2015, they made an Appleseed movie and they used a game company for it.
Is it CGI?
Yeah, 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 it's all CGI. The whole thing is CGI. It's not probably some 2D in there, but the majority is CGI. So you see, like everything, like animation
Hmm.
wise, like it looks like a cutscene from a game, or like the setup, like you would see a thing, probably like press start or something or anything like that. Like I don't think that that would really work for anime to go into there from like a
Yeah,
game company perspective and then do an anime.
yeah. Of course, you need to have experience in working with like cuts, shots, films. Well, of course, a lot more than films because we've seen like film directors try and make anime. It just doesn't work. You need like proper experience in anime specifically because there's a lot of things that a director needs to know. Like I said before, there's a lot of cheap techniques you need to know to speed up the process and like get
Mm.
these cuts delivered as fast as possible that you won't know if you're not experienced in like this niche part of the industry.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And
yeah,
But yeah,
one
for
thing I see that
anime,
like sometimes, all right, well, go ahead first. Yeah,
what
go
was
ahead.
that?
Go ahead, Hans.
Mars?
yeah.
Hello. Yeah, no, I'm saying go ahead first. Yeah.
Do you hear us, Qball?
I
You
think he's
hearing me?
asking.
Hmm?
I think he's asking
No,
you if you have something to say.
no, no. Well,
Uh, I mean, okay,
well, what?
yeah.
Sorry, sorry. I think there's like a little bit of a lag here.
Oh, I see.
Uh,
I see. Hmm.
well, for anime, if you think about Mushi and a Book of Friends, I mean, I think the biggest difference in those two is like Book of Friends have way more comedy, a bit more gags, a bit more thing, and Mushi is basically an anime that doesn't have anything of that. Like none of the characters really
Yeah.
jump out like it's the main character or it's like some special character or something. Like there's a
Right.
few characters, like with Ginkgo having white hair, one
Yeah.
eye, etc., 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 and then some other characters. But it's really like all just normalized. Every character is just like dressed as normal as possible, nothing
Right.
special.
Yeah.
Lots of people have also said about it that it's just for women or for girls mostly. But yeah, it's really calm and it's really sad and it's really just
Hmm.
normal going and has a slow pace and etc. 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 But it doesn't really have anything that appeals to that. I mean, it doesn't have a lot of pink. It doesn't have a lot of
Hmm.
cute boys or cute whatnots, etc. 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 So it doesn't really go for all that well. I mean, even though the opening is not even all the way through like really romantic. If you hear the whole thing, it's more more dark
Right.
humor in there than just
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like more for both. I would say it's like more an anime that you would use for like anybody really, but it's not for anybody
Hmm.
because it's a really calm setting that just goes its own
Yeah.
pace basically with a
You
bit
have
of
to like really specifically like that kind of stuff if you wanna, enjoy Mushishi.
right, yeah, with YKK, it's more like you're in this. It's like this rare instance that you are in this far future. Mankind is slowly dying, but nobody is like going at their throats trying to look for a cure or anything and just murdering
Hmm.
everybody. No, you just accept their own fate and just go on by their own. And you have these androids that just walk the earth and just do their own stuff, like
Right.
on rides, having a cafe, etc., 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 etc.
Hmm.
So yeah, and then you
Yeah.
make a whole anime out of that, which, if you think about it, sounds really boring, but it works so well with the whole atmosphere and the whole setting of how it is all done.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at Japanese history, people have always just made art. They made art like even during war. Like they don't care. They just make art
Mm.
uh, whenever, I guess. Uh, so yeah, uh, they'll make anime about literally anything if like they feel like it.
Yeah, I mean, do
yeah.
you have any favorite manga?
Favorite manga? Uh, Probably none. No, I don't. I don't think I have a favorite manga.
Hmm. Okay, okay, okay. I
I just
mean,
sort of like skim through manga and like I forget their name afterwards.
hmm. If you find a lot of artists through anime, like different soundtracks that you really like, and you want to see that artist, and
Soundtracks? No, I don't really have any strong opinions on like soundtracks in anime.
okay, okay, okay. I mean, I have a few stuff like if you ever seen Helsing, like the first anime from 2001, there's this artist that really can bring that atmosphere of horror and really this
Mm,
experimental stuff through it just to
I see.
get the show going. I mean, it's his only strong point, really, because the animation
What
is
genre was that anime?
horror.
Oh, I see.
Helsing is basically a Dracula story, but then with lots of dark humor and lots
Oh
just
man.
completely gone off the bus. It's a really crazy story. It's basically
Wow.
set after Bram Stoker's original novel. Basically, it's
Damn.
this. It goes about this vampire hunter society that tries to hunt ghouls, which is these humans turn to ghouls. And then their trump card is Alucard, which is Dracula, backwards. And this character can do, well, basically everything that you would think a vampire can do, but then even more, and just goes on and on and on. And then in the original anime, before the manga was done, they made this new anime.
Hmm.
And yeah, its only strong point was basically the music and nothing else, because the animation, they didn't have a lot of budget to make any of this stuff. And yeah, well, that's for that.
Sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. I mean, mm, me and Qball are mostly interested in sci-fi anime, like for
Oh, I
instance,
see.
like for instance, Kinda and the Great Snow Sea. You probably never heard of that. This is also from the mangaka from Tsutsuma Nie. His
Yeah, I've never
newest
heard of
work,
that.
which is, oh, you did. Okay,
But
that's
well,
finished now. Hmm?
you mentioned mushishi. You know, like
She.
Hmm.
yeah, I thought the mood in that I think was really unique. You know, and like the even if you don't really overtly notice it, I think the soundtrack was like a big part of kind of establishing that mood, this eerie mood. You know, like you never quite at ease, even though it's kind of a relaxing watch. You're never totally
Yeah,
quite at ease watching it because you know
exactly.
some strange thing. And I thought it was interesting that it didn't have like an actual bad guy, you know. Like the creatures may hurt people, but they don't
Yeah,
really have like a conscious will. You know, I thought that
right, right.
was, you know, and
Uh,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah. So the thing that I like about Natsume's Book of Friends is that it has things like Mushishi. Like, for example, there's these sort of spirits that aren't really evil, but like you still don't really trust them that much. Like, it gives you you don't know how to feel. Like it puts you on guard, I guess. Like you don't really feel at ease. And I think like I agree with you. Like Mushishi has that feeling where uh, like everything is calm, but you don't know like what might happen next. Like something really bad might happen.
Yeah, with Natsume, I look at I look at I need to finish watching it, but you know the way that gods think and you know the things that they want are like totally different from what you would even imagine like a human would kind of be after. And I think
Hmm.
that you know they're working on a whole different scale, you know, as opposed to human.
Right, right.
But like well, I happened to get on that because I was looking at what else was like Mushishi, you know, and yeah, I think that is
There's
definitely something that
not a
is
lot
kind
of
of
shows go that route, or have not gone that route really with like pure nature. I mean,
There's
maybe some.
also there's also Kino's journey. It's a lot
Yeah,
like
yeah, but
Mushishi.
it's the
yeah
same episode, which
that is
is like this.
also you know, is and I think it really shows like yeah. You know, it's like a cliche to say in animation you could do anything. You know, well, you can't do anything, but you could do a lot of things. And I think
Yeah,
was
yeah, a lot
like
of
just the
things
way
that.
that every, every episode, like
Exactly.
in a totally different country with like a totally
Yeah,
different set of
yeah.
rules,
Right.
and that is something that you in live action you wouldn't be able to do that.
Oh
You
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
know, like
I
you
mean,
wouldn't be able to.
I agree.
And
lots of live
in
action movies just don't work. They just don't have the budget for it. Try and work
Exactly.
out, and have to work. You work with way too much CGI that they don't have anything to work with. Like Attack on Titan movies didn't work. Dragon Ball Z
Hmm.
was too boring, or the other movies are
yeah,
just like cosplay movies with like lots of wigs, lots of clothes, but that's about it. There's nothing going for it.
Yeah,
Like the
I
most
mean,
down to earth vampire.
not everything has to be a movie. Like there's a saying in manga editorial departments is that if there's too much narration, this should be a light novel. It shouldn't be a manga.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
Hero's Journey is a light novel series, but somehow
Yeah.
they translated it into anime so well is that even though there's so much narration, they still managed to make it like an entertaining watch. You know?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think they
yeah.
were able to get the mood, you know, they were able to get, if you can get the mood of something down, um, or create, no, I haven't read the light novels, but I imagine is this kind of surreal feeling that the anime had, you know, like
Yeah, yeah, for
we could
sure.
turn the corner and find a normal society where heroes are totally different. One of the things that I think is a problem is sometimes there's a director that almost it seems like they don't know the limits of animation, or they don't know the things that is strong at.
Hmm.
So like if
Hmm.
somebody who's only been doing live action, they will make a animated show or a movie that doesn't
Hmm.
play to the strengths of animation, you know.
Exactly, exactly.
So it's like you almost have to say, why is this animated then? It could have been live
Yeah.
action, you know. So you need
Yeah,
that
you need a director that really understands, how to make good animation, not just like create something and then just, like you can just create something and shot for shot copy it how it is in like the light novel or the manga. But if you make like a good adaptation, you really like sort of understand the strengths of using animation, the strengths of using sound design, the strengths of cinematography, and when you combine all of that, you can do things that live action will really struggle with doing unless they use like an insane amount of CGI.
Yeah. I mean, it's
right.
like
Yeah,
with Kaina, for instance. I mean, Kaina is fully 3D, and problem with that is there's just not much going on in the world itself, and with the story. The
Hmm.
story is a real simple thing. Like the main character comes from basically different worlds. Like where
Hmm.
he lives above the world, above this centrum of trees that have this ozone layer around the planet. Basically, it's not a real ozone layer, but it's supposed to be one. And then a girl comes up, supposed to be a princess of some country, and he tries to prevent war and save the princess that's been kidnapped. And then it goes on and on and on. But it's also part of this huge universe that Mia has created with companies coming back like Toei Industries or like uh,
Yeah,
administration, safeguards, seed chips, that kind of stuff. So for fans like us, it's fun to theorize about which part and which things are connected to that whole universe. But outside of that,
right.
like other fans won't really enjoy it because it's just such a simple story. I mean, it was still
Hmm.
enjoyable for like what it
Hmm.
was, but there was not much going on. I think the movie's gonna go in a lot of better and more interesting ways on what that story would be.
I
Have you
see.
seen everything Qball yet?
Have I seen?
well, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, wait. Were you asking me a question, Mars?
Yeah, no, I was asking Qball. Have you finished the series?
No, I've never
Well,
seen. Is it a sci-fi series?
Yes, I've seen.
I see. I see. The only sci-fi shows I've seen are like Evangelion and Trigun Stampede,
Mm.
and
Oh, new one.
oh yeah, there's this one sci-fi show. It's really good. It's Captain Tyler, uh, the irresponsible Captain Tyler. It's pretty good.
Okay, from what year is that?
It's like
uh,
19 something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's an old one. Okay, okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
pretty
no, I've
old.
not really heard of that one.
It's
How long
it's
is that?
I've
pretty
never
good.
seen it, but I always like it's just, what we know everything about the guy. You know, he's irresponsible. You know, he's just like this slacker or something,
Hmm.
crashing into stuff.
Wait, are you talking about
Hmm.
Trigun?
No, irresponsible Captain Tyler.
Oh, Captain Ty. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you can never like understand, his characters. Like, is he really smart or is he just, really lucky?
Yeah, yeah, that's something like with the same with Trigon, the same with Fashion. Like he seems like
Yeah, right.
really stupid and doesn't know what he's doing, but
See,
at
if
the
you
same
if
time
you
he
like
knows
Trigun,
what's
you
right.
will if you like Dragon, you will like Captain Tyler. I guarantee you that.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen the original Dragon from the
Yeah, I've
90s?
seen the original Dragon. It's pretty good.
Okay, which one do you like better? Like the original with all the comedy
Uh,
or like the
yeah,
new
I
one?
definitely like the original because it has like some of my favorite characters in it. So
Yeah. It has more heart into it. The characters
yeah,
have just a bit more going on. Like,
yeah, and it also progresses like more slowly. Like the plot takes its time, but then again, it's like 24 episodes. So fair enough.
yeah. And the majority is also filler because the manga was not even finished, so they couldn't really do anything with it. Like something like
Mm,
34% was like filler. So it's mostly like one episode is a thing on each other and it just goes on. And a few
Honestly,
characters.
like I enjoyed even like the filler episodes. Like it felt
Yeah. That
I
was
really like the characters. That's what Captain Tyler is also like. You really enjoy the characters, which will like make you sit through all of like these 24 episodes.
mm, I mean, yeah, with the new show, you have this old guy that was with Meryl, like I don't know what his name was, Senpai or something,
Hmm.
and he was just not into it. He was just outside this crazy story, this crazy world with these crazy
Well,
characters, etc., and he just stayed the same constantly. He just
I see.
didn't go progress. He didn't develop as a character, basically. I
Well,
mean,
that's
yeah, I mean, at the end, he just yeah, I mean, he died as a bit of a spoiler, but he died at the end of the thing. But you
oh, I
didn't really
see.
feel sorry for him or anything. Hmm?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why they like decided to pick the most boring character and just put them in the Trigon anime.
Yeah, I mean, in the first series, he had Millie, which was more the comedic relief character, but
Hmm.
she also was a friend of Meryl and also
Yeah.
kind of a love interest to Wolfwood. So he had that
Hmm.
dynamic going, and you have that throughout the
Yeah.
series. He was just developed as that, so he just had more
Hmm.
heart for her when they were almost shot, but Fesh had to choose to let them die or shoot one that's causing it. So that was
Right.
gets way more intense than oh he dies now. Oh great, yeah, where's Millie? It's basically what everybody was
Uh,
going for with that show. Which is just
yeah.
and I still liked the new show. Like the 3D was pretty good. I mean it's like
Yeah, it is pretty
Orange
good.
really knows what he's doing basically with
Hmm.
like with B stars with Land of the Lustrous. It's also pretty
Hmm.
good. So yeah, they really know what to do.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, maybe it was taken a bit too serious in my opinion. But yeah, I guess they wanted to go that route because the older series was just majority was just comedic, so that doesn't really work. So
Right. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I think it's unfair comparing the original anime to this because obviously it had like 24 episodes, and that's so
mm,
much more time to like develop
yeah, yeah,
these
yeah,
characters,
yeah.
you know? And
Um, th-
yeah,
but I just wanted to say like there were some ideas that I thought were really interesting in the original. Now I haven't seen the reboot, but like just the idea of like seed chips, it wasn't really too
Yeah.
overtly explained in the original, but from what I understand, there were seeding life on planets, and
hmm,
what I thought I like the idea that there's these people that are settlers on this planet that they almost don't even seem to remember the past. Like technology has
yeah, yeah,
almost become like a myth to them, and
it's a very
that is
cool
something.
concept.
Well, that is something that's similar to some of what Mars was talking about. The Nihei is a popular. Well, I I guess he's popular in some circles, but like his stories are almost like that's kind of at the center of them. Like where there's technology, but it's been so long, and the people are so far removed from it that they've
Yeah,
forgotten it, and it's almost become like a myth. I
right,
find that's
right.
like an interesting thing.
Yeah,
Like, and it's not that hard.
that is
You
quite
know,
interesting. I agree.
yeah, it's not that hard to imagine in a way because like look at how much technology we use now that we don't have any idea how it works.
Hmm.
So like if
Hmm.
the imagine the people that made it, they just somehow disappear, it would be like magic to us.
Yeah,
I don't know
Yeah,
if I don't know if the new Trigon. Well, I need to read the manga because I imagine that
Yeah,
there's a there's a lot of explanations because
Yeah, I
yeah,
in
mean,
the original anime,
imagine like the basic concept is like you take people from the 1920s and then you give them like smartphones and all of the technology we have now, and they're like, "What the hell is what is this? Like,
yeah,
how do I
yeah,
use
yeah,
this?"
yeah, and with
that's
uh, and
really
with
cool idea.
technology that we know now, it's like with the pyramids, we also have almost no idea or like how they made it and how precisely they made it. Over like with
Yeah,
Stonehenge, which was the
exactly.
purpose
Like,
for that, and
I
so
guess
on
you
and
just
so.
have to be there to know it. Should have been around that time
Hmm.
Let,
to
And
understand.
with,
well, I think
and
all know it was aliens. Okay, just go with that. All right,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
just don't think about it too much. But
Exactly.
I
just
mean,
go with
with
that.
the
I think that
reboot with, I mean, with the reboot with Trigon, it goes a bit more the route of the manga, like the whole story a bit more, but it's still its own thing. It doesn't go fully the way of the manga, but it goes a bit more the more serious side of the manga, you would
I
say about
see. I
the
see.
reboot. So it was not, yeah, about that.
Hmm.
And yeah, with Kaina and other niche stories, like his biggest story is probably Blame, which is what Qball already said, which is this world that is just it is about this huge mega structure that builders have built, these huge machines, and humanity has lost control over this city, and its own
Hmm.
system has turned against them and tries to eliminate everybody that has not this specific gene, the net terminal gene that controls
Hmm.
the city. So it's just on this autopilot and keeps on building forever and keeps on killing everybody forever. And our main character, what my PFP is, Kiri, tries to um, get control back to this city with his special weapon, a gravitational beam emitter, which is this really powerful weapon that can just blast to anything that it has. So 70 kilometer meter holes can it make or
Hmm.
something like that.
Hmm.
And this whole series just goes through from action scenes between the safeguards, which is the system that kills everybody, and the Silicon Life, which is also an organism that this humanity has created,
Hmm.
and it's also just going on the chaos and just wants this chaos to go on so they can still rule over all of this. And he just tries to prevent all this, and he just walk. And time is not relevant in this world. He just can
Hmm.
walk for thousands of years, and almost nothing changes to which goal he wants to get to. And
Right.
so he has no consciousness of how it all develops. He has a memory, but it's also slowly degrading. So he's just walking in this endless structure and has no clue where to go, and constantly gets updates from the authority, which is like the main hub of the mega structure, but it also doesn't have connection to the system. So yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting manga. I mean, it tells its story without explaining anything, basically. So you have to
Oh
figure it out.
yes.
The characters know what the story is and what's
Hmm.
happening and what's everything is used for, but you don't know that. So you have to figure out how it all works. So you can just endlessly theorize over it and make it your own story, basically. So
Right.
and the manga was originally also a architecture student of architecture, so he had to explain so he can make all these structures and all these devices and all these
Oh, I
rooms
see.
and whatnot. So yeah, it's a wild story basically. It's a
Mm.
sci-fi anime, which is lots of action, but also lots of quiet moments and also lots of yeah, walking around basically.
I see.
yeah, I mean, if you can't keep up, Cyrus, I don't blame you because I read it a few times and I don't even know what it's about, But
I
it's
see.
just kind of like it's just kind of a long play ride, Like just
Mm.
understand that like you kind of get huge ideas across in like a very limited and cheap way. The scale of certain things. Like there'll be two panels right next to each other. One is just about a guy walking across the room,
Oh
but
wow.
those two panels might be 10,000 years apart because of the scale of the room. Like and because of the is interesting because it's like it's the limitation of a manga.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's like an ambiguity. There's panels right next to each
Yeah,
other,
yeah.
thousands of years.
So like that's one of the things that I also wanted to just touch upon is that when converting manga to like anime, sometimes it doesn't work because like with panels, for example, there's this very cool Chainsaw Man panel where like one panel is like they're talking or something, and the next panel there's like he kills everybody and there's like blood everywhere, but you don't see it. It's implied and I
Mm.
guess like translating that into the anime, like you will just never get the same feeling because it's like with panels, it's not the same medium, so they have to do something else. And I guess yeah, it just depends like on what medium you're telling a story in, uh, what kind of story you're writing, and knowing the strengths of uh, where your story is, and yeah, just working with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they also
Yeah,
said about the series that it was too slow and that manga actually wanted to make a movie, so you get really that speed up because the manga is a really high speed action manga. It just goes from
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
to thing, which is also based on opera, which is also a near story. So it's also on that speed of creatures going against creatures and enemies going against
Exactly.
enemies. So yeah, I mean, I can see that why that would be difficult. I also saw a panel that like a pop-up box was like behind a window when they were talking, like they were talking inside and would just walk through a hallway, and that's how they were communicating to each other. But
Mm,
yeah, but it doesn't matter for anime because they just dub it or just sub it
e-
anyway, so it doesn't matter really. I mean, I saw it
exactly.
in some anime, like in Esukon, if you remember that from Science Hour, they also had pop up um, bubbles
Which
with
anime was
text.
this?
Esukon. Esukon. Yeah, I don't know how you say it.
Eisuka.
Yeah, like keep your hands off Esukon basically. And there's also these lots of
Mm.
panels to go these different talk balloons that just go sideways or like horizontally or like from the sky or other stuff like that. It's also interesting. I think they also used it in the anime, something like that, just to communicate. They also tried it with edge runners, for instance. Yeah, cyberpunk edge runners. They had these telephones in their heads and just can call anybody up. And you see in the side, you see the whole conversation going. And think, of, oh, the majority you see it below the anime, but sometimes you just see it around there. So it's also kind of interesting how to get
Mm.
information across and to implement it
Oh,
into the anime.
I'll just be right back. One sec.
Ah, but yeah. Hmm. Have you seen anything of Cyberpunk Edge Runners or something like that? That
yeah,
the sub.
yeah. I've seen it. I thought it was. I was surprised at how good it was. It was. And I'm surprised that it was. As far as I could tell, almost all of it was hand drawn, as opposed to like relying on
Hmm.
CG.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Especially
yeah. Yeah, yeah. It's Studio Trigger,
especially.
obviously. So they know what to do. Obviously, I thought. I mean, I didn't know if it would suck or not because it is obviously an anime based on a game, a side story of a game. So that's always a 50-50 if that really works out because the majority of animes based on games kind of suck because the story was not good in the first place. Welcome back.
Mm. Hey, I'm back.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
what do you
talking
think
about
about? Hmm?
yeah, I just talking about stuff that you mentioned. It was talking about some stuff that doesn't work. Um, in
Yeah,
animation.
like
Like the
from
panel cut.
games
Yeah,
to anime. Like they
it's
try
like
they
you said, right? It's like you said, Q B Hall, just a few moments ago, is that you really got to know how to utilize the strengths of animation. And when it comes to Chainsaw Man, the author knows how to utilize the strengths of the manga, and that's how they
Mm.
utilize their panels and create like things that you can only do in manga. So it's the same thing with like what you said, but with manga, basically.
mm,
Yeah, and I think that's why Junji Ito is hard to make it work in animation because you need that page turn.
Hmm.
You,
Yeah,
the feeling of the page turn of oh, you turn the page and here's this happening, here's this wet. I mean,
exactly.
you could do a jump cut kind of a thing and or a shock. Like a
Right.
shock,
Hmm.
a shocking thing with a loud noise, but um
Yeah.
I don't know. He might. I think if Junji Ito writes something specifically to be a anime, it would
Hmm.
probably work better than
Exactly.
somebody else trying to adapt it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to
Exactly.
see that.
Yeah.
You know.
yeah. And
Like it
Cyrus,
definitely. Yeah.
what do you think about going from games to anime? Like try to adapt an anime from a game.
Uh, like QBL just said, I think that when you make content that is specifically made to be in one medium, for example, I made a manga just to be in manga. I made an anime just to be in anime. I made a
Mm,
game story just to be in a game. It'll obviously be a little more harder to translate that into another medium because like games have like these open worlds. There's a lot of characters to talk to. It's hard to like come up with a cohesive story where you mix up all of these guys' stories into like one mega story, right? It's gonna get a bit
mm,
convoluted. It's not gonna be as good as an anime just made to be an anime. It'll definitely like it'll definitely hit the limitations of what you can do as a story. Like they'll definitely try their best. They'll try to include as many creative written pieces, but it'll never be as good, as an anime just made to be in that medium. So when it comes to like games, translating their stories into anime, I think that unless the director or the screenwriters are very good at what they do, it'll definitely be on subpar quality.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, yeah, a lot of
I,
manga that do the page turn horror or other stuff. It's like mostly from like the 80s, 90s, or like
Hmm.
older than that, and specifically just for a manga that works.
Hmm.
And for Junji Ito, I mean, they tried a lot of live action movies to let translate, but the majority just didn't work at all. I
Yeah.
mean, for some movies like creatures going, what like
Right.
secret, like there's one movie that used sea creatures that had just these
Hmm.
mechanical legs and just were walking around
Right.
everywhere in the place. That worked really
Yeah.
well. A movie
I
or an
mean,
anime. Beyond
That's
that, not much.
exactly why I think a lot of live action shows based off of anime like just don't work because they don't understand why it was so good in animation, and when they try and replicate it, it just doesn't work unless they know how to make it work in their medium, use their
Yeah,
own medium, the strengths of their medium to make the story work. It'll just be like inferior version of the anime.
yeah, 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 yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. What
and they don't have
like
the budget for the CGI to work
well,
like with Attack on Titan or
exactly.
like yeah.
Mhm.
Like in animation, if you just want to have a guy fly, you just draw a guy flying. In live action, when you want a guy to fly, you had to have a crane and you had to have somebody sign a waiver and
Yeah.
get a stunt guy and all this kind of nonsense. It's like
Mhm.
I almost think that I mean, the Marvel movies are super successful, but I
Mhm.
always think that those things are supposed to be animation because a lot of times whenever they're doing anything super heroic, it's CGI anyway. So
Exactly.
why not
Yeah.
just do this in animation? You know?
Mhm.
um and
Yeah.
well I see that. Well, I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised that Into the Spider Verse was successful, So I think that that will make people think that you know
Yeah,
what,
yeah,
you could make you could make a an animated show that is not just for kids.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
like this
So, for
is
example, you know how, like in Sakuga shots, like the characters, their arms, sort of distort when they get too close to the camera, and like their entire body distorts, and like all of these like
right.
speed demons and stuff. You could never do that in like live action. It'll just look really weird if you did that with like CGI and live action. Uh,
Mm.
Right.
you know, so you really
But
have
is
to
that
just know like the limits of your what media you're using. And yeah, what were you saying?
I just saying it was is about the expressiveness of it. It's not about whether it's accurate or not really.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I mean, like like right now I'm trying to learn anatomy, but then like I look at a lot of my favorite stuff, and it's like, I don't think these guys know anatomy either. But it's like
Mhm.
it's more expressive almost. I was looking
Exactly.
at some shots in behind the scenes of Into the Spider Verse, and
Hmm.
sometimes a lot of times to get stuff to work in the way that
Yeah,
they want it to, they actually have to
yeah,
break
yeah.
the rules.
Exactly.
Break. This is not correct perspective. This is
That's
not
that's how
correct anatomy.
that's how CGI artists, at least animators, like that's definitely a trend I've noticed, especially after the recent animated movies, that they'll try and distort things like how they do in cartoons, and I think that it
Yeah.
definitely works. Uh, Games have been doing this
Uh,
for a long time, by the way. Uh,
yeah,
Old,
like first person games is like a lot of hackery going on, right? From what
yeah,
I understand.
exactly. Games have always been doing this. It's just that now film productions are also starting to be like, hey, we can do this and make the shot even better, and now they're doing it. So,
Yeah,
uh, yeah,
and I think the
Mm.
inaccuracy is like a strength of the quote unquote inaccuracy is a strength of doing
exactly.
things
Yeah,
by hand, because you're drawing how it. So to break those rules in CG is almost more work, but in hand drawn is natural.
yeah, exactly. Because
Like
everything, it's actually more struggle to keep things on model. It takes more, like as an animation director, I need to make everything on model. But it's actually so much harder to keep things on model. It's just so easier to, because every single frame is a new drawing. You're making the character all over again. And it's hard to make it consistent every single frame, right? So it's always going to be slightly off in the next frame. And I think that's what, if you can capture that in CGI, it'll definitely feel less robotic, because like rigs and models are, mathematically always going to be the same every single shot unless you distort them.
Yeah, yeah,
right,
yeah.
like a perfect, imagine like sometimes I know that things are CG because if I see a perfect like head turn, I say,
Exactly.
that had to be
Exactly.
CG.
Yes, exactly. You can tell what is CGI because it's too perfect. It's too, like the
Mm.
model is just, it makes too much
and
sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
I mean, with
somehow it's less attractive, in a weird way. Sometimes it's often less attractive because it's like it doesn't
Yeah,
have as much life, like when somebody's doing it
exactly.
by hand, the eye is like in the wrong place, and
Right.
it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
up like when you turn the head, the eye moves in like a weird way
No, of
because
course,
a
right?
lot of
Because anime is not meant to be like realistic. It's very, very stylized. It does have anatomy, but like if you took it in real life, it would just not make any sense. It would just,
no, no, no.
yeah,
Like,
it
yeah, like
would be a
with
nightmare,
Chainsaw Man, they thought a lot of fans thought that was 2D because it was so much so well blend together with CGI
hmm,
and 2D
yeah, yeah,
to make it work. And something
yeah.
that
It
doesn't work
was
with anime is like with Attack on
right.
Titan. They tried to make it CGI, but it doesn't work because the anatomy does work in anime or in manga, but
Hmm.
in real life that just falls apart really quick.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, with Chainsaw Man, the thing is, right, a lot of the animators, they did animate those CGI shots. I guess they just didn't have time to like clean them up, and in between them, they just were like, screw it, let's just use CGI, and they use CGI.
Mm.
So, because I saw a lot of the roughs for those shots, they were hand drawn. They just added the CGI
Mm.
in later because they couldn't, like, time constraints is one of the main reasons people, anime studios use CGI. It's not budget;
Mhm.
it's time. Because obviously, all of the directors and animators want to make a good anime. Regardless of how much they're getting paid, everyone wants to make a good show. But it's just time. They don't have enough time, and they just can't make it.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And of CGI, I mean, of live action movies, which is one is the best that worked from manga or anime to live action?
You mean like translated from anime to live action?
Yeah, or a manga.
I haven't really seen that many live action anime because I don't want to cringe too much. But yeah, I honestly I have no idea.
Maybe Mushi. Have you ever seen that live action on
No,
the
I
show?
never even knew there was a live action of that.
Yeah, Akira Ultimo made a movie in 2006 about live action. It's actually decent. It's not too
Oh, wow.
bad. Obviously, they don't need to have a
That,
lot of CGI to work.
Damn.
right.
I see.
I think that manga might lend itself a little bit better to being made live action because of the relative groundedness of it, if that makes sense. Apart
Yeah.
from and you could probably do the mushi in like a kind of an abstract CG way, like it's
Right.
not that
Yeah,
they aren't
there's not a lot of
grounded, so we could
crazy
kinda,
characters and crazy animation and
right,
No, 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 no. It's just
like
the mushi that are really like you need some
yeah,
CGI with that, but beyond that, it's just all nature and just some
yeah,
people that walk
but
exactly.
around.
and we also have no point of reference for the mushi in real life. I think that is definitely something that makes it harder to animate. Like we know what a real tiger looks like, so when they try to
Mhm.
make one and it's even slightly janky, they
Right.
say this
Yeah.
thing is this is ridiculous, But the mushi
Yeah,
is like abstract shapes, Here's a triangle, we could draw that in 3D. Uh,
Right. Yeah.
uh, like
yeah, but
oh,
won't work.
another thing about Chainsaw Man was that I noticed like they would do these stuff that is mechanical because that's hard to draw. So we could do that in CG, but when they
Actually,
had
in the 90s, there were animators, artists turned animators who were like great at drawing mechanical stuff, and
yeah, I always go
yeah,
back to that. I always I mean, imagine guys pulling out T squares to draw animation. I just
exactly.
imagine. It's crazy. I
Yeah,
mean, aside that is not much of a thing, and the few
I
times
mean,
that I see somebody do it,
I can
um,
do mech animation and like mecha stuff. It's just I don't get that many opportunities to do it. But yeah, I
Mm,
think that's one thing I really like about my skill set is that I can do that because a lot of animators they can't do a lot
mm,
of mechanical stuff.
mm.
Well, that's definitely something very difficult, and a lot of
Yeah.
animators struggle with that
What show
part
you
of.
want to work on that?
I'm fine with like. Do you mean like which show I've worked on
Yeah,
for
no,
that?
no, no. I mean, with your technical skill, and you want to do something like Gundam or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
anything
Yeah, I've
Lego
done
stuff,
like
which show would you want to work on?
so in terms of doing Gundam or what show I would want to do, I've done a lot of Evangelion fan art animations. Uh,
Mm,
so yeah, I definitely would like am inspired a lot by the designs of the Evangelion mechs, flesh
mm.
mecha, whatever you want to call it. It's
Yeah,
unique, you know.
yeah. Okay, 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 okay.
Yeah,
I mean,
is
for
a,
live
a,
action
a little more
movie.
bendy than the average mech, I think. A little more fleshy.
yeah. By the way, in your opinion, you would say that Attack on Titan is like basically flesh mecha.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, it's like a
and
mix
that
between machine and flash, or something
Mhm.
like flash,
Yeah,
to try to work. I
oh,
mean,
have they ever reinserted? You mentioned that how sometimes they would use CG, but they did exist the beginnings of hand drawn animation for those parts. Now I heard something similar to that with Attack on Titan, where they had started to do it, but just because of time they did it in CG. Might that be something that they reinsert into the Blu-ray or something? Because I know sometimes they do that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. So, and when it comes to the Blu-ray, right? Obviously, all of us animators are perfectionists. We want to make everything good, and if we sacrifice the quality of something, we want to make it better. But we didn't have time, so we couldn't do it. So we'll fix all of those issues in the Blu-ray. But honestly, I have no idea if they'll do that with the Blu-ray. I can't have no clue.
But it is possible.
Yeah, it is
Ah.
possible. Yeah.
Okay,
You
because
see,
I mean, sorry, you know because I think they had some trailers where they had very short cuts of where it was where the Titans were hand drawn, but the actual episodes they were CG, you know. So I find that's like an interesting thing, you know, where like we could go back and fix this in the Blu-ray, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. I don't even think Western studios do that. It's like, oh crap, we messed up. All right, well, screw it. It's out there now.
Well, sometimes there's the director's cut where they do fix something, but then ironically, sometimes people sometimes they make it worse. You know, something like George Lucas. You know, now there's like a big Nintendo 64 looking thing here in the background where there never was one before. You know, like that. That was the case where the old methods were a lot better. You know, but go ahead.
I mean, with Berserk, they also tried it in the Blu-ray to fix some things, but there was just so much wrong with it that it just didn't work. It was just below average to do that.
That is a case where.
And with Star Wars, like over 40 years, there's so much stuff added to it, like puppets, clay, or like CGI or other stuff to make it. So if you wanted to buy a Blu-ray, you would see all this stuff added over the 40-year period. And what original would look like, you have no clue. So like the most famous movies that are out there are like kind of lost on what the original looked like. So that's also weird to think about on that scale for something so popular.
Yeah, and it is interesting that the low-tech methods that I used to make the original whole lot better than the early CGI that they used in the
2000s and the 90s.
Yeah.
Speaking of things like getting worse over time or getting better over time, so every single anime drawing you see or screenshot you take of an anime is actually worse than the Sakan or the animation director's drawing, because the animation director draws on paper usually, and then the in-betweener has to trace over it, and in that process of tracing over it, the key animator has to trace over the animation director's drawing, and then again it's traced over by the in-betweener, and in that process of tracing, like, the drawing gets worse. So it's actually, when you see an anime drawing, it's like the second pass of this same drawing, except it's gotten worse. So the animation director has to put a really good drawing so that even after it gets butchered, it still looks good. So
you know what that reminds me of? Have you ever seen like the pencil tests that they do first for classic Disney stuff? Like the line has so much life, you know, because it has and also all the errant lines actually kind of give it more life in a way that you know, at the time that wasn't acceptable to have on screen. Now, like with people doing more experimental stuff, like, have you seen the girl from the other side you mentioned with studio doing some kind of experimental thing?
No, I've not seen that.
Oh, I have.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's, if you check it out, it's like they're using, I imagine it's digital, but they're using somebody more analog emulating digital tools. So it's not kind of the, you know, the crisp line where, you know, a lot of times.
Did you know that 101 Dalmatians, like, I think they skip the entire line art process. They just uh, had the rough animation and just cleaned it up slightly and then just pass it over. Because I think Walt Disney
So
was
so
losing
so,
money at that
so
time.
I heard something like that because but you had to have a good carbon line on there though. So and
Yeah,
because I think that is what would be they use aerography to translate it to the cells, right? So that it didn't
hmm
have the inking stage, right?
right.
So
Yeah, yeah.
but
It's a Xerox.
even that I think is interesting. Sorry.
It was, I believe, it was called the Xerox process or something.
Yeah, xerography. Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, but that is why if you look at it closely, you see like this, you see like slight construction lines still sometimes, and
Yeah, yeah.
or they use that interesting technique to do the vehicles because they painted
No, no,
black
yeah, yeah.
lines
I do agree. I
on a
do remember.
physical
Yeah,
model.
yeah.
Yeah, that is really like an interesting thing, you know. Like I would have never thought they would have, because I was looking at this thing and I was saying, "There's no way they draw this car." You know,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
no way they draw this mechanical
It
thing
was the
because it's
same
turned
thing with
in
the
is the
snow as
perfection.
well. They like just took the car's model and just put in the sand or something, and then they just made it snow when they drew it.
Yeah,
Like,
I, but it's interesting, like all these techniques that they used, you know, back in a time where you think, because I was looking at this and I said, is this like some kind of an early CG that they did and they printed out on cells or something? You know,
no, it was just
that
rotoscoping.
was well, the car itself wasn't rotoscope; it was literally photographed. Like I don't think
Oh,
anybody
yeah,
they painted it manually. Though. They
right, right,
painted it
right.
manually. You know, and, there's
Wait,
so
but
many things that
wasn't the snow
mhm.
rotoscope though, or was that also?
I can't remember the scene with the snow, but I know for sure that I saw they did the vehicles. You know, they had
It was
the black lines on a physical model.
it was like when
Um,
Cruella's car like crashes into like the snow and uh,
yeah,
yeah.
you know, I wouldn't doubt it because they were doing a lot of interesting things there. But the animation itself of the characters that you know they even if they use a lot of reference, there's so
hmm
much caricature in them that
Yeah, yeah,
is you still have to do a lot of work then, you know. It's not like to say it's a
yeah,
realistic guy that we could trace him directly, you know.
yeah,
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 yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, even movies like Akira were done by a separate technique, by a separate machine that would animate the whole thing. So basically, it's done digitally. I don't really remember how the machine was called, but it was by a really
for
new technology.
the quick not the quick action recorder that they always talk about in the making of Akira
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think
is
it was
that,
Mhm.
that. Yeah.
but that was just that from what I understand, that was just to quickly record animation drawings and play it back on
Mm,
Oh,
screen so you wouldn't have to flip, you know. It was really just kind of
yeah.
like a fast pencil test method. You know, I mean like
Yeah.
if you it's amazing what we take for granted now because now
yeah.
you just hit play on a digital
They literally, if I
thing and
remember correctly, they literally used to use stopwatches to do lip syncing back in the day.
Mm.
They
oh
still
yeah.
do in some studios, just to like get the lip syncing right. If it's a scene where the character's mouth moves a lot, like there's different mouth movements, because usually in anime there's only like one mouth movement up and down. But sometimes the character's saying something like an important scene, they'll animate more mouth shapes, and then they'll use a stopwatch to try and time it and see if the lip syncing matches like the what they're saying. Also, one interesting thing in anime is that sometimes they'll not have the animatic ready. They'll do the animation and then they'll dub it uh, over. So
Mm.
yeah, like in the West is the opposite. They have the animatic and then they dub it over and then they add the animation. But in anime, like it can go like either way. It can also be like they don't have the animatic and then they just use the animation, then they dub it over. Uh, and I believe like there's also like this light that goes off in English dubs where like the light goes up whenever the character's mouth opens or something, and that's how I guess they try and time it properly, the voice actors. But sometimes that also doesn't work. So in order to match, like sometimes you feel like dubs sound a bit weird because they're trying to match the timing of the Japanese uh,
Right.
lines. So yeah, so
Because
that's something that happens.
in that case, they're focusing more on trying to match when the mouth is open as opposed to give a good performance.
And
Trying
or
to
if
match.
they want to get like the scene done, like if that character is talking for this amount of time, they have to say their English line in this amount of time.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like that. That is like because no, they had to use the stopwatch because they're working on paper, but that is one advantage of doing something digitally. Like you can literally
Yeah,
just scrub. You
right.
know.
Yeah.
That is, but I mean, yeah, even as good as the drawing programs and devices I've gotten, I mean, there still is nothing like paper, you know. But
Yeah, yeah.
one day they're gonna make some kind of advanced scrubbable paper. I don't know. They're working on it. They have top guys working on it. But you know, even now, like I'm amazed at how, like, even like a Samsung tablet that you could buy have pressure sensitivity and is powerful enough to do like a lot of stuff. You know,
I mean, there's
so I
also
mean,
things like, for example, if you animate on paper, right, you're not staring at the blue light that you get from LED screens all the time because you're animating for so long. You can get like a lot of eyesight problems by staring at high brightness LED lights with a lot of blue lights. But if you are looking at like a low dim light with like not a lot of blue light, it's like less harmful to your eyes, especially if you're working for like so long, you know?
yeah, I've been wearing those glasses. I don't know if they actually work. I've been doing two things. I've been using the tint adjuster on the device and also using the glasses. So it's almost. I've also been changing the color of the paper. I've been changing the paper to like red or something like that, just to avoid the. You could get insomnia and thing too. You know, you're looking at blue light at 3 o'clock in the morning. You know.
Right, yeah.
It's also the paper is cheap, you know. I think that is a good reason to use it still, you know. Even here in the third world we could afford paper, you know, so that is always good.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I think I've got to go now. It was a
Okay.
nice podcast.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. You're welcome. Yeah, it was also an interesting talk with all the stuff you could see from your work.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff in anime. I wish I could cover more.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
maybe next time, who knows? Good to have you.
Yeah, maybe
You know,
next time.
thanks again. It's good. It's good to have some insight, you know, because a lot of times I'm always wondering,
Yeah.
what is this? You know, how do they do this? You know,
Exactly.
like in the 2000s, in the 90s and the 2000s, we were so far removed from it. We would never even have imagined
We would not
that it
know
was
anything.
possible to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, and now online they could just nag anybody. You know, like I nagging people, you know, ex-Disney guys, you know, guys that work on the Thief and the Cobbler. You know, they can just bother anybody. I mean, they might block you and not answer, but still, you know,
Movie
there's no harm to
stars,
try.
MMAs on Reddit and whatnot.
You know?
But yeah.
Yeah, just email them, ask them, you know.
No, I just DM them, you know, I DM anybody. What difference it make?
Yeah.
You'd be surprised at who answers, you know. Sometimes, a lot of times, like, it's like people from so long ago, they're glad that somebody remembers the things that they did.
Okay. Okay, well, let's wrap it up. Okay, that was an episode of Mori, so have a good night, have a good day, and maybe on Earth, maybe in the future, we see each other again. Bye.
Later.
See ya.